Welcome back to the Cheer Athlete Podcast. Today I have with me Coach Eric Thompson, aka the TumbleChef, and Coach Thompson is from Maryland and originally from Missouri that we just talked about. I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about tumbling and what you've got going on and how you help cheerleaders improve their tumbling. So welcome to the podcast, Coach.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about being here today.
Let's hear about your journey as to how you became the TumbleChef. And one quote I saw on your website is that hungry athletes are the best athletes, which I think I believe is more of a motivational, go get them hungry for what you want to achieve. But I think it's also important as an athlete to be hungry, to be, know that it's okay to be hungry. But how did you get here? Because it sounds like you don't have a background in cheerleading, but you help a lot of cheerleaders.
I don't have a background in cheerleading at all. Never cheered. And for me, I learned how to tumble. I taught myself how to tumble when I was a kid. Just for the love of it. Like, I always found it interesting. And a lot of guys in my neighborhood would just flip, like on the grass and things like that, off of mattresses. And I remember in 1996, the kids call it the 1900s now, but in 1996, I remember watching the 96 Olympics, man, and I watched Dominique Dawes, and I was like, man, I want her to be my girlfriend. And I convinced myself the only way that she would be is if I taught myself how to tumble. So I remember going downstairs in my mom's living room and immediately teaching myself about handspring. I enjoyed it so much that I actually then taught my little brother how to do a handspring. Now he didn't keep his. He did his like once or twice and he was done. I think he like fell on his head on like on a mattress or something. Didn't get hurt, but he was like, nah, I'm not taking those risks again. But me, I just kept at it. And then I started like doing like, and I wouldn't say these aren't technically sound flips, but I would do flips with no hands, flips off of houses. I would flip it. Everything I could flip, I was flipping. But for me, I didn't look at it like a career. So for me, it was more like on the side. It was back burner. It was for fun. Blah blah blah. My dream at the time was to be in the NFL. So for me, I didn't think anything about it. I just kind of kept it moving. And then fast forward to me going to college, I met a guy who was teaching tumbling at we're working with cheerleaders in Maryland at my when I was in school. Went to school with his wife. And he came by, he was looking for people to work. And in college, everybody knows in college, we're all broke. So for me, I was willing to pretty much do anything legally if it paid, right? And I didn't even need to be a whole bunch of money. I just needed something that was like viable that I could do. And I asked him my question. He came up to the school. He's like, hey, he asked my coach. And by the way, I did college acro. So since I did college acro, our coach had us in there tumbling, whatever. And he asked our coach, like, hey, you have any guys who would like to teach tumbling? And my coach called over three of us. And the crazy thing is the three of us still do it to this day. Myself, Coach Mikhail Kerr, his handle is Mr. Flip, and Coach Jonathan Grimshaw, his handle on Instagram is Tumble Theory. And my question was simply like, do you pay money to do it? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, I don't need to know anything else. I'm in. And that was like in 2000 and probably like 2004 maybe. And I've been doing it ever since then and just try to focus on getting better and more efficient and knowing more as a coach since then. But that's pretty much how I got into it. I get asked that question a lot. A guy, I forgot his name. He sent me a message one time. He's like, man, like, what's your background? Like, were you a cheerleader? Were you a gymnast? Are you just like a talented coach? And I was like, I don't know if I would go with the word talented. But what I would tell people is when I like something, I'm curious and I want to know as much about it as possible. I think we all should be curious and never stop being a student. So that's pretty much it.
And that's exactly what makes you talented is because you are willing to keep learning and continue to be a student and push yourself. I think it's amazing that you could teach yourself. I never had any formal tumbling or gymnastics coaching and have had a number of injuries attempting myself to tumble. And so I never was a tumbler at all. And so to just do it, and because you were intrigued by the Olympics, I think is, that's incredible. Another fun fact there is that 96 Olympics, my alumni team, which I wasn't a part of, but it was kids after me, but was the first team to be actually at the Olympics. They didn't compete, but they were part of an Olympic opening event.
Oh,
It was Northeastern cheerleaders, and so I tie myself to that 96 Olympics too because that's my alumni. So
man,
that is
that
good.
started everything for me. 96
Yeah,
Olympics.
good time. And it's amazing that now we're coming on to soon. We'll have them in the Olympics also as competitors. So that's amazing. Um, what are there any tips that you can give that are relatively easy for whether it can be either skill or mindset or just how to keep learning and things that people can kind of work on, like 3 to 5 tips that you can give that people are easy to do or to what how would you
Are you talking for coaches or for athletes?
for athletes?
For athletes, what I would do, and I think it's the same for coaches. And I actually think it's the same for parents, right? If I'm in any industry, the more that I know about it, I think the better things are, right? I think part of the issue athletes run into is that one, we're so focused on getting things quickly. And if I get things quickly, in my opinion, in my experience, the quicker people get things, the quicker they lose them. Or the quicker they get them, the less understanding they have of the skill, the easier it is to lose. So when I hear like terminology, like my mental blocks, things like that, a lot of times it's overstimulated information or the amount of information that you're processing, or maybe you blew or sped through the skill too quickly. And I'm not saying everybody, because everybody's situation is different, but one of the number one tips that I would give anybody is actually understand your skill, actually do the preparation for the skill, actually do the drills for the skill, actually condition the parts of your body that's responsible in the skill so that when you do the skill, you don't have to feel overwhelmed attempting the skill. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to think and then go. You actually want to just react to the situation. So I don't know if it's actually an easy thing, but the number one thing that I would tell people is do more drills, do more conditioning. And when you're doing those things, you ask for 3. Lastly, when you're doing those 3 things, when you're doing those 2 things, don't do them to get finished with them. Do them to learn from them, because that's a different mindset and different approach, if that makes sense.
Can you dive a little bit more into that? Because I agree. That's a how can
Absolutely. So I use this conversation all the time when I go to clinics, right? I'll go to a clinic and I'll be working with people that for some reason I'm struggling with my hamstring, or the parents like, well, my daughter for some reason can't do a handspring to save her life. And I'm one of those coaches when I do clinics. And people, I know a lot of coaches, well, I don't want parents to watch. I want parents to watch. I want them to know. I want them to know what their kids' weaknesses are. Because if you have a parent who feels like it's just mental, or you have a parent who feels like their kid is doing everything they're supposed to do, or if you have a parent who's misled on what their athlete is actually capable of, they'll consistently blame you as the coach for not getting their kid where they should be. So what I like to do is I open my clinics up. I'm like, parents, come watch. I want you to see. And then what I'll do is I'll do something simple like, okay, everybody, let's do 15 push-ups. And everybody's like, push-ups. And then they get out there and they're like struggling and they're like doing a body wave because they can't do a natural push-up or a normal push-up. Definitely not 15. And then I'll say, stop. Because I want to make sure I make the connection between why I'm doing what I'm doing and what I'm doing. So I'll say, stop. When is the last time you've done 15 push-ups in a row? And they're like this, never. I'm like, cool. All right, nothing wrong with that. But let me ask you this. When you do push-ups, what part of your body are you using? Everybody's like, well, your hands and your arms. I'm like, awesome, thank you. So in your back handspring, what part of your body are you counting on or trusting in to make the handspring work successfully? My hands and my arms. So then I'll ask, if you haven't worked on the area in which you have to trust, how will you then trust it when you need it? And then everybody's light bulb goes off like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that, right? So I try to make things as digestible and as simple as possible. So I'll use the reference of the reason I am the TumbleChef is because I use the food references for pretty much everything, right? So me, I have children. I am not going to feed my son or my sons or my daughter, which is her birthday today. Happy birthday, baby. But um, I'm not going to feed my children a full 16-ounce tomahawk steak. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it up into more digestible pieces so that you can actually eat it. When it comes to tumbling, if all I'm telling my kids to do is try stuff, throw stuff, do stuff, but I haven't broken it down into more digestible or under or easier positions or simpler information to then retain, they're not going to be able to actually understand and do it. And then that's where everything, in my opinion, goes wrong, especially in the sport. Because for me, gymnastics is more, my coach was a gymnastics coach. So we would do probably maybe 50 drills to one skill before we actually attempt. There would be so many drills, but then when we finally did the actual skill, injuries were decreased, understanding was increased, and then we actually, there's skills I still do now at almost 40 that I learned when I was 18 and 19. And the reason is because the way that he broke that down and me actually understanding the skill. But I would say gymnastics is more like a home cooked meal, whereas cheerleading is more like a fast food. Yes, we get it quicker, but do we keep it longer? Can you put it in the refrigerator? Because a lot of the tumbling is like McDonald's French fries. You do it for like 10 minutes, and then after that, gotta throw it in the trash because you can't eat it because the fries have zero shelf life. So that's pretty much my deep dive in that.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy because I hear a lot of times on different social media channels that parents they're questioning. I don't have a background in all-star cheer. Mine's all college and high school cheer, but that they're questioning, well, why is my child on this level, and why do they have to work extra when they're not at practice? And I do think both are set up a little bit differently, but it takes work and it takes time, and you have to break down the skills, and it doesn't happen overnight. And if the coaches are throwing them to just get in there and do something to put it into routine, it sets the routine up for failing, number one. But number two, most important, that they're sets the kids up for injury, and longer term, are they going to actually retain that and be able to progress with that and digest it and move it along, as you
Right.
said. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's sad. I asked this question, and a lot of it is too, though, as you as a coach, when you start out, you don't have necessarily your coaching chops, is what I would call them, right? So you don't have necessarily the confidence. You don't want to upset people. You don't want to get in trouble at your job. And then as you coach longer, you then create your own philosophy, start being more confident in what you're willing to say. And before, I understand that skills and time and cheerleading is a business. So if customers are unhappy, then you got a problem, right? Especially if you're a gym owner, you're like, hey, I got to keep my customers happy, blah, blah, blah. I get that part. But now when I go do clinics and now that I own my own business, one of the things that I try to relate to parents in a way that they can understand. So most of your parents you're going to deal with are going to be born in the 90s for the most part. Right now, you have some older parents, some younger parents than that, but most of the parents are going to be born in the 90s. And one of the things that I tell the parents I work with is, I'm like, if you were born in the 80s or 90s, I don't need to age you. I want to put you on blast, but think about looking back how often you saw in your neighborhood 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds who had wrist brace, elbow braces, knee braces, back braces in your neighborhood. And like, well, I never saw it. I'm like, so why do you see it as much as you do in cheerleading? These 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds walking around with wrist brace and ankle brace and knee brace, and they're like this. You know what? I never thought about that. And I was like, that constant need to level up every single year, the constant need, well, I got to continue to get skill or get new skills, even if I'm not ready to do new skills, like that over and over and over again, as opposed to you actually taking your time and prolong. You like, if I'm a kid, I'm not saying hold your kid back. That's not what I'm saying. But before you move them forward, make sure they actually have an understanding and make sure their bodies are ready to move forward. That's all I'm saying.
That's it. Solid advice across the board, I think.
Mm.
Um, do you Are you primary working with cheerleading teams now? Are you work with gymnasts? Like who do you, and is it both? Do you do clinics for both?
So clinic wise, not necessarily. I do clinics more like primarily like for all-star and high school cheer teams. At one point, and like everything has changed, like everything has changed so much. Like I tell people, I never really envisioned it to be like this. Like when I initially started TumbleChef, like the reason I started was really for me to talk like this and people actually listen. Like when I was just Coach Eric 15 years ago, wasn't nobody going to listen to me talk about condition and the importance of drills, and nobody cared about that then, right? But when I start putting out my recipe videos in 2019 and they start like blowing up, I would go places and say, okay, I need you to do this. They're like, man, the TumbleChef said I need to do push-ups is doing push-ups, right? So for me personally, like now it's like, now that everything's like kind of like, I wouldn't say gotten out of hand, but definitely didn't expect this many people to like seek out my information, seek out what I have to say, or even want to work with me. So now I primarily work with, I would say high school and all-star. Individually, I'll have like gymnasts, I had like some dance studios reach out and ask for like, hey, would you come and do clinics, stuff like that. So I primarily work with cheerleaders. I do work with gymnasts from time to time. I work with dancers from time to time, even some acro athletes from time to time.
You are busy. That's
Yes, yes, yes,
yeah.
yes.
What and that's a testament to how you've been able to reach people and talk to people, and I think that's huge, and getting that message out there is important, and that's one reason I started a cheer athlete, because as a physical therapist I want to be able to reach people and give people, like, it's not just the reason I see people in the clinic is because they're doing things. I mean, there's always accidents. There's, you just misstep and things come down. It happens. But when you are ready and you're conditioned and you know your body position and you can put the work in, you can have a less catastrophic injury, and you're more likely to recover quicker. And so, and I do see the same thing. A lot of parents that come in and just, they got to be back into their
Yeah,
routine tomorrow, and it's like, okay, well, they broke their ankle, so let's give it a little time, and it's a healing process, and we all want things quick and we all want things done yesterday, but life is a journey and it's a process. So and if we want that good full course meal, 4-course meal,
yeah,
5-course meal, we got to put the work in and make it be lasting. So
exactly. Yeah. Try to tell people, man, I get it. I know that you want it and I know you want it now. And I try not to lie to people. I try to be as honest, not like rude, but like as honest as possible. Because I know it's cliche to say, but I actually, once I start working with an athlete, I'm invested. But I'm not just invested in you getting skills. I'm invested in your health. I'm invested in your growth. I'm invested in all those things. So for me as a coach to be only focused in on how many skills you're getting, in my opinion, I believe that I'm doing your athlete a disservice. So for me, I practice prevention rather than reaction. So for my athletes that I work with, we do things to warm up the ankles. We do things to strengthen the ankles. We do things to strengthen the wrist. We do things to strengthen the core every time that you work when we do those things, so that when you, and it's so funny because I had a young lady a couple years back and she was working her double full. And she was like, she said she was so honest and she had no idea. We were discussing somebody tearing their ACL doing a full. And she was like, wait, people tear their ACLs doing fulls? And the reason she was so like taken aback by it is because she hadn't seen it in the gym because of the way that we train. Right? She's like, what? People tear their ACL doing fulls? I'm like, yeah, people do it all the time. And she was blown away. She couldn't believe it. But I would love to take credit for it because we all have egos, but a lot of it really is just in the training, and it's not just me, it's the other coaches that I work with that look at it the same way. I don't want the kids to get hurt. And I tell parents, paying for more privates is expensive. And they're like, you're right. I'm like this, but it's not as expensive as medical bills. So you're gonna have to choose.
yeah,
So
that should be mic drop right there for sure. um Two kind of final questions. One, one, do you have any programs for parents and coaches? And two, what else do you have going on right now? Where are you, do you have programs and stuff going on that like, what's the summer holding for you?
Man, the summer looks crazy right now. So this week I have clinics here. So I'll be in Maryland. I'll be actually be all over. I have clinics in Maryland, clinics in Salt Lake City, Wyoming. I'm in Indiana next week. So I'm all over the country. I may even do what is that thing called, like the Cheer Factory or something in Canada in August. I'll be doing the residence in Jersey with my friends. What else am I doing? I have my boot camps coming up in Jersey and in Maryland. And as far as like the big thing that is like I'm working on now for the summer is my drills and spotting clinics. And I'm doing that out of Dream All Stars on August 5th and 6th. My plan is I'm going to do, like, I'm not planning. What I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially spend an hour teaching drills and how to spot pretty much all the fundamental skills. So like handsprings, tucks, layouts, fulls, double fulls, and to let coaches pick my brain. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to videotape and kind of take a documentation and then send it to the people that come, and then give it to or sell it to people who didn't get a chance to come, so they can have it as reference. Because what I get asked a lot is, how do you spot those fulls and doubles? And a lot of people don't know how. So I figured this would be the best way to teach it. As far as parents go, I don't really have anything for parents. I know that I was thinking about doing something to make parents more aware, because a lot of the parents are doing stuff with their kids at the house.
Yep.
Like a lot of parents are doing stuff with their kids at the house. And one of the things I tell when I tell athletes, I'm like, I don't have a problem with that because you spending the money. But what I would say for parents is I would make sure that I actually understand what I'm doing, because you may be setting your kid up for failure. Because yes, maybe they got their back handspring, but if their back handspring looks like the letter Y, the coaches may not put them in the routine. Yeah. And you may be, well, I don't get why my athlete who has a handspring is not level 2. That's because you taught them a handspring that they can't use on level 2. Make sense? Yeah. So I probably will create something for parents to kind of help them with the things they're doing at the house with their athletes, things they should look for, how to understanding score sheets, stuff like that. I think will go a long way for them.
For sure. I think that would be hugely helpful for them. Even like there's a lot of devices out there that I think you can you can practice tumbling skills. My portal always fades me out. I don't know what just happened. There I am. So you can practice skills at home, even when just a trampoline. Right. And there's all kinds of other devices out there now. But if you don't have the technique, and you don't, if they haven't learned that technique and being taught by, it's not that, there are some parents, there's a lot of cheer alumni, right, that have cheered and have tumbled, that potentially could teach that. But the biggest thing, like with your kids, is like get them into a regular exercise routine, get them into a stretching routine, get them into their conditioning and their drills, and practice their drills with them, because those are the things they're not going to have in a 2-hour window that they have to run through a routine. Right. And so teaching them how to do that, and for the parents that don't have that background, to give them the skills and the tips for that, I think will be huge. So
I agree 100%. Yep.
But Eric, I think you're doing amazing things, and I love watching you on Instagram, and everything that you're putting out there. I think is very valuable for people, and so good job, keep up the good work. Thank you. I'm going to give a shout out to your daughter. Happy birthday! I hope you have a great day, and I hope you get to go and enjoy that time with her. Where can people reach you if they want to connect with you?
I think the easiest way, now that I'm actually getting my life together and like getting things organized, you can find me on Instagram. And on Instagram, in my bio, I have my link tree. And you can find access. You can get access to pretty much everything that I'm doing there. And then I'm post, too many times a day, letting people kind of know where I'm going to be at. Doing a better job of letting my monthly events so people know what I'm going to be doing. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So I would say Instagram, go to my bio and get on my link tree.
Perfect. And I'll put that in the show notes for everyone. And I know you have some, because I was looking at that earlier, that you have some online offerings in there as well. And there's all kinds of resources and how to reach you. And so definitely go check it out. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me. Thank you for
And
having me.
I hope to talk to you again soon in the future and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You have a
That
good day.
Thank you. That concludes today's episode of The Cheer Athlete, everyone. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out. Take life one step at a time. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you are responsible for your own vibes. Go get it. Have a good day.